Hey everybody, it's Elizabeth Morosco with Kudos Magazine. If you're a caregiver, this is going to be a video that's just for you. My name has been associated with caregiving, and it's because I've personally been involved and I've turned it into sort of our business model of helping caregivers get through a very difficult time. And today I am with a really special guest who has been a part of the medical community and providing health care for many across our whole community. But he also took a little bit of a different journey of becoming a caregiver in his own personal life. So today I'm super excited to have a chance to introduce you to Jon Stewart. And John is with Hurley Medical Center. He has been both a caregiver for his father and involved with taking care of so many that have come through Hurley's emergency room and providing some of the best care in our community. So, John, thank you so much for coming out today. And it's a pleasure to have an opportunity to speak with somebody who is not just aware from a professional standpoint, but somebody who's actually walked that journey. So tell us a little bit about maybe some insight that you got along the way. You survived. That's the first thing, right?
Yeah. So, hey, thanks a lot, Elizabeth. I think our paths have crossed a few times professionally, and then when we were both kind of in a certain circumstance, so I think we were drawn to the same place for probably a reason that maybe now is being manifested through this. So, yep, you're right. I've been a registered nurse. I've worked at the medical center for over 30 years, and in 2012, my father had a catastrophic stroke, and it was just shortly 6 months after my mother had died, and it wasn't something that we were at all prepared for, but we're cast into, and that was okay. His level of stroke impaired, and it's such a severe stroke that it occurs to less than 1% of the population, and it
Wow.
pretty much takes out um, all of their cognitive abilities to include their balance, and it kind of renders them to that of a 2-year-old, and so he required 24/7 care, and so it was at that point and I was fortunate to have two other brothers. We developed a plan to figure out how we were going to take care of Dad, and so that's where my journey started. And My dad died in 2019, so he lived with my one primary brother lived in the community, and I do as well. We alternated, but got a little background noise here in the hallway. I don't know if you can pick up on that.
Well, that
Uh,
makes it officially live. We're in an actual live
yeah,
video.
yeah. They're splurging for some new carpet here in the office area, but anyway, we developed a plan that lasted about 7.5 years to take care of Dad's needs until the end.
Wow, that was really long term caregiving. I didn't realize that it was that long of a period of time. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
incredible. It definitely helps if you can have some family that can step up and take up some of the
Oh,
responsibilities, you know.
yeah.
But for so many families, there's often the scenario where everybody's working, and there's not really a dedicated family member that can maybe, be there full time. So,
hmm
from your professional background and also your personal background, what are some suggestions you have for people that are maybe in that predicament?
Yeah, and I think the first step, uh, if they're already there, is to explore kind of what resources are out there. And a lot of this is kind of cliche-ish. And again, it's different to conduct yourself in a my professional sense and what I know and what I do at the medical center here. And then when you switch gears and you flip the switch to your family, I think that there's certainly elements that you can bring across that'll help support you through this time frame. But it's a whole different world. And so for those that are, going through this now, there are some community resources out there that can provide support and offset some of that burden. But at the same time, not everybody has access to all those resources. I was very fortunate, and I knew close friends, and you and I were talking before we started that it's not uncommon that when you're having a conversation with someone and you're in the midst of this, they too have either been enduring this caregiver role for a while or know others who have. And so to answer your question, I think there's immense value in networking with other folks, and it's not hard. And there, I'm sure, and I don't know the formal um, outlets that are available through support groups and whatnot. But I did find a lot of value in connecting with people who were in the same boat, and them with me, I think. And I think that there was the thought that since I was in the medical industry and was in a care profession, that I might have some other insights, which I think I did. But when it becomes you and you're holding the bag, all bets are off as it relates to it from an academic standpoint or any other formal healthcare standpoint. It's your parents are your parents, and they we're depending on you to be able to perhaps flip the tables a little bit. They did this for you, so you feel a little bit obliged, but there's certainly a balance in there to try and figuring out how you can best support the needs. So I think getting a hold of the resources that are available, networking with folks, and then as we chat through this, I think that there's ebbs and flows of this that you're going to have to allow yourself to endure, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges as you go through this journey.
Absolutely. And actually, this is kind of a reminder. One thing that we do have through our Kudos platform, we started a private Facebook group called Caregiving for the Caregiver. So that's a great place to get connected and get in touch with some other people that are walking that path. But one of the key things I think is opening up and talking about getting on that journey, because it is exhausting in so many different capacities. But the truth is if we're not talking about it or realizing how big of a journey it's going to be, we can get into what we call burnout mode of just giving to the point that there's nothing left of us. And with caregivers, that tends to happen more often than not. I think that something that you said that is super important, you were talking about from your medical background, a lot of people kept coming to you. Probably you became the source of contact for your family because people thought that you had the knowledge. And although that's great, even from people that are caregivers that are in the medical profession, you still need support. You can't just carry it all on your own. And coming to that realization can be really hard because we just want to give so much to our loved ones. And another thing that you pointed out, I think, when it comes to, like, you were talking about your parents, there's that whole emotional aspect of you want to be able to provide the best that you can for your parents and to be able to do everything that you can. And unfortunately, we're human and we can only still do so much. So I think having some outlets is key, and connecting with some of those groups can definitely help.
Yeah, we got plugged in, and this is one of the outlets was made available through the medical center, and I knew about it but hadn't really tapped into it. Was for instance, VAAA, so Valley Area Agency on Aging, and they provided a couple of hours a week. And when my brother and I would switch off care, be over there. My brother was retired, but they would come in and they would sit for just a couple hours, which allowed him to go out and get groceries, get his hair cut, maybe just go out for lunch. And I think it's vogue and it's the right thing to say, but when you're mired into the daily grind of providing that care and that support, it's hard to recognize when you need that outlet. And I think one of the aspects that we learned over time, and it took time, was balance. And that's yet another, you know, kind of cliche-ish type of, yes, yes, you read it in a book and it's easy to say, but sometimes it's pretty darn hard to pull off because, this person can't do anything without you. And if you don't have alternatives, you kind of can't see your way out, and you can't see the forest through the trees. And then by the end, as it's published and we've talked about, your health declines. And so, it's important to, I think, allow yourself to understand where you're at on this continuum of care.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have any magic bullets as to how you do that, only that maybe hearing from another caregiver and surrounding yourself with folks is probably going to be something that's echoed in each discussion point, is trying to figure out how to make time for yourself. And I think there's, especially with parents, and you just hit it on, there's a bit of a martyristic type of mentality around, I can do this, I got this. And I was super fortunate. I had two parents that made, me and my brother's lives fantastic. And so when the roles reversed, you really feel compelled to stand up and stand out, and it gives you value and worth. But after year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, you start to see from an outside perspective, or someone points it out to you, how much it's chiseling into your well-being. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think to whatever degree you have people that you can confide in, and that you might not have the level of introspection yourself to go, I gotta step out and look in, depend on others. But the magical question is, once you identify the need, it's, really what resources and alternatives are there. And I think that there's going to be people who are going, yeah, I get it, but what can I do about it once I'm there, once I'm burnt, once I,
Mm-hmm.
need this support? And I think that's where these discussions need to continue to go.
I agree. I agree. And I think that that guilt associated with wanting to do it all and feeling guilty if you're not there ultimately can be the key part that leads you to burnout. So I went through this as well. I know that you know my story. I also was a caregiver for multiple family members, and each of them had a different capacity of what they needed help with. So actually a total of four different people, but three main people that I provided a more intense level of care for. But for myself, my mom actually finally intervened. And one of the things that she said to me is, you have to have a reality check that you can't do it all, and that you've got to start asking for help, and you've got to start being truthful to yourself and to other people, especially when it came to my husband, of the severity of his sickness. And I think a lot of times we can get into like this positive frame of mind, embracing like the law of attraction of just stay positive and keep going and keep going. But there also comes a point where you have to realize you have to be able to nourish yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually so that you can provide a source of support to the people that you love. And that takes courage. And I think getting
Yeah.
over that hurdle of like that guilt of, doing something aside from just being there constantly. And this is something similar even with parents with little ones, needing to take a break and, have some time for themselves. That's how we're able to come back and, serve our families better in some ways, doing something that brings us joy. And it is key. So I'm really grateful that you're talking about this, because I think that so often caregivers become ashamed of feeling like they need a break, and it's important to say, hey,
Yeah.
take that break, get some sleep,
Yeah.
take a rest.
Yeah. I think there's an interesting point you hit on here, and I think the spirit of this discussion is around being as vulnerable and transparent around this subject matter as possible. And I think it's important that, because it is so complex, that threshold is different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get to that point, it might be a very fluid threshold, meaning that you might get there sooner between times, and so
Mm-hmm.
you might not have any other
That's right.
impacts, but it's okay to feel how you're feeling 1 week, and then be able to nail it for the next month before you feel this void. And I think man, is that ever complex to try and wrap your head and arms in? Because we all want to attach it to some reason or a salute, something. And sometimes I think it's just, life happens, and
Mhm.
it's you need to be okay with feeling how you do when you do. It's just now, what do you do about it?
It's actually really powerful what you just said. It's okay to feel the way that you do. Because there may be even sometimes it's a cross between sadness, sorrow, anger, frustration, loneliness. And it's okay to feel
For sure.
that. So I'm glad that you said that, because so often I saw somebody a while ago and they had posted this meme on Facebook, and it was a rug. And underneath that rug, somebody kept like sweeping underneath the rug. So it was this great big mound of dust. And it said, "My problems." And I think that sometimes we can get to the point that you keep dusting it under there and it's not going away. You gotta clean it up a little bit. It's time for some spring cleanup, you know? So I love that you also brought up, is it Valley Area of Aging? Did I lose you? I might have lost John for half a second. We'll see if he comes back in a minute. Um, but while we're waiting for him, real quick, just so you know, you can go over to kudosflint.com and sign up for your free copy of Kudos Magazine. And one of the things that we're going to be covering will be topics like we're talking about today, and getting all of these different interviews and insight from people that have been either caregivers or are currently caregivers. We even actually had a chance to sit down with some dietitians at Hurley Medical Center, and they're providing some great tips for getting everybody back on track with healthy, happy living, even if you are a caregiver. And one of the other things, too, make sure that you go check out our Facebook group, Caregiving for the Caregiver. And throughout the month of May and June, we're going to be focused on sharing tips. And every time we do an interview, we're going to make sure that we have it posted right there in that group. So make sure that you go get involved in that and, you know, be a part of it. Be a part of it. And I think we have our guest joining us again. Hold on a second. Let's see here. Did we get him? There he is. Hey, John, are you there? Did I lose you? See, it's officially live because we have a technical. Wait, are you there, John? Are you
How about
there?
now?
I see you.
I am.
Hi.
All right. Hello, I'm back.
He's back. There he is. There's the guy of the hour. Oh
Yeah,
boy.
yeah.
Yeah. But it's always fun. You
So,
never know what's going to happen when you live stream. And it makes for an interesting story. And similar, you never know what's going to happen when you become a caregiver, because all kinds of different stuff can pop up in a given day. Let me see. We have Mary Collins just left us a message, and she wrote, "Help can be found at Change Hypnotherapy." Oh, okay. And also reach out to your local hospitals, because they usually have a geriatric department. You can connect with social workers, people that are involved in healthcare. They genuinely want to help you, not just while you're at the hospital, but when you go home. So you stay back on track and you stay out of the hospital. So make sure that you are reaching out and asking to speak to a social worker when you go in there. And Christina wrote, "Mom is home arranging nursing care now." Yeah. So, and even when you get into, the nursing home bit, that gets into an entirely different ball of wax. You were
yes.
fortunate. You were able to provide care at home for your dad,
Yeah.
which is amazing. What a
Yep.
blessing.
We there was bouts of when he went in, as he would fall or he would get hospitalized, and then would go to acute care rehab at a extended care facility. And
Hmm.
so, and then the last couple months, we leveraged that at a facility as well. So, but the
Mhm.
medical center here, Hurley Medical Center, has a pretty robust senior care geriatric program that provides wraparound care for that patient population while they're an inpatient,
So
and then
much so
also
that you
afterwards.
guys even make sure that the floors are non-slip for the seniors, which I was totally impressed with that. After I
Yeah,
had dealt with a
yeah,
couple of slip and fall accidents, I do pay attention to the floors, and I thought that was pretty
yeah,
phenomenal that you're taking that level of care with your senior patients. It's pretty cool.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, we're doing all kinds of things to limit noise pollution, which can contribute to more confusion with clocks and sizes of things and communication tactics. And so, and those are things that we do in the inpatient side, but are things that can parlay over to the home setting. If you're reducing trip hazards and you're having gait assistance um, adjuncts around the house, whether it's rails or walkers or things, there's a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
information that we can provide that helps alleviate the chances for tough outcomes at home,
Yeah, that's smart.
for sure.
We actually had handrails installed, like coming into our house, and one
uh
ramp out of one of the doors, and then we added handrails into all of the bathrooms by the toilets
yep.
and by the shower. And those things, believe it or not, did make a really big difference in allowing loved ones to have some sense of privacy and dignity, and also
Yeah.
allowing caregivers to have tools to help a loved one while they're trying to help them in a difficult
Yes.
situation. So yeah, that's definitely key, but I think a lot of people don't realize that sometimes till they get there, and I've heard of
Well,
some that.
it's another one of those. Yeah, it's another one of those pieces that evolves as you don't see the gaps, and you fill them in as they develop. And
Mhm.
I think you don't know how long this is going to last either. So
You
there's
don't.
a lot of moving pieces to this whole notion.
There are. Hey, John, I have a quick question for you. One of the biggest problems that I seem to face over and over again with all of the different cases I dealt with was medicine management, and like overlaps of needing refills, or different stuff that happen. I use some of those little canisters to manage the pills, because a lot of times it was like three different sets of pills throughout the
Yeah.
day. Um, I would love to know from you. This goes back to what you're saying. Everybody turns to you because you work in the industry. I'm doing it to you too
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But I would really
Right
love
on.
to know from you, what were some tips that you have, maybe for like managing medicine at home safely?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it starts, I mean, if they've been in an inpatient setting or out of their primary care physician's office, the first step is the medication reconciliation process. And that's a big word that just means, do you have the meds straight to begin with? Because sometimes different specialists will order meds, and not
All the
intentionally, but
time.
there can be medications that
Yeah.
are duplicated and they're not, necessarily indicated for what's going on. So the first step is to make sure, and whoever you use as your guidepost, whether it's your primary care physician, whether it's a specialist, that you have the right meds. And then I think it comes down to the pill dispensers. And I think that what's crazy is, and this is where I draw from my professional experiences, that you would think you knew whether you gave it and you did or you didn't, and all of a sudden you
Oh.
get halfway into the day and you go, I don't know if I gave this
I,
thing, because so the bottle thing isn't the best way to go, right?
I know, I know.
So yeah, and so my brother and I, we both kept them at our house as we rotated dad back and forth. But really, that whole day of the week pill box was what we did at the beginning of the week, and inevitably you'd get through mid morning, you go like, oh, I didn't give dad his morning meds, but I think that that in and of itself keeps you on task with where you're at with the medication process. And depending on the circumstance, the meds can change and vary. And I think the other important aspect of this is to discard any of the old ones. I think, at least from my mom and dad's generation, I don't know that they threw out too much of anything. But when a med becomes not useful anymore,
Good job.
they would, keep it around. So get rid of that so you're not confused. And then, it's not unreasonable to circle back with your pharmacist if you have a good relationship. And we had the same pharmacist and pharmacy that we used to make sure that you're you reconcile those and you're giving what they think you're giving. But I think the individual day by day dosing strategies are probably the most effective to not getting your wires crossed when it comes to giving pills.
It's smart.
And that's hopefully you got a family member who's receptive to the pills. My dad, there'd be one day where he'd take them without any problem, and the next day he'd cheek them, or he'd suck on them, or he'd spit them out at you. And you were always wondering, how do I make sure that he gets this so that his therapeutic levels are adequate, and that's always a challenge as well.
Yeah, that's actually one of those points that a lot of people don't know about until they get there, but you have to be super observant that they have taken the medicine. One of the, going back to what you're saying of forgetting, did they take the meds? Did I not give it to them? Not remembering. Yeah, it sounds like no big deal. If you're just taking a Motrin once a month, you remember you took the Motrin. But I think it's that repetitiveness, and then it starts to overlap. It almost feels like deja vu. We just did that, didn't we? So I started doing a journal to write, and that way also, if I wasn't there, I could have somebody that was filling in for me, make sure that those pills were given at that time.
Yeah.
My mom recently had knee surgery, and she didn't really need caregiving, just more like a little bit of help along the way of journaling. Journaling, not journaling, writing down her meds. But one of the things that we did was we started setting an alarm on her phone, so it would go off at the same time of 8:30, so she'd know, and that definitely helped. It gets overwhelming, especially when it's multiple pills that they're taking, blood pressure and
Yeah.
diabetes and so
Yep.
many
Yep.
different things.
When you said that, it took me back. I had actually forgotten that early on, for the first few years, we journaled, and it was blood pressure and meds and therapy and
Yeah.
what we'd done, and I think we carried that on beyond. For one reason, we just didn't know, if this was something that had any level of being reversed, if he was going to get better, and the case was he didn't, and it
Mm,
wasn't an injury that really many people ever recover from.
yeah.
And so that also helped us reflect back on kind of where we were, where we're at. And I think your point of journaling is a good reminder, because I think that has other values, and it probably exceeds my psychological expertise
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that. But, I think it does give you a refocus. And then when you go back to kind of look at where you've been, there's some benefit in seeing that, so that maybe you can see progress as well.
Yeah, and even sorting out some of the stuff that's just stuck in your head. And it's funny that you brought that up about, the benefits of journaling. John and I didn't pre-talk this, but later this month, I have a lady named Lisa who is going to come in and talk about some different writing prompts for caregivers to help them sort of work through these different times. And she has been both a caregiver and a patient. So, it's amazing how when we share these stories, we can help each other. Hey, one quick thing that I do want to say really quick, too, going back to the medicine, another thing that you can do is write down a list of all the meds and send it to yourself on your phone. Take a photo of it.
Yeah.
And that way, if your loved
Yeah.
one ends up in the emergency room in the middle of the night and the doctor's saying, what medication are they on? More than likely, you're not going to remember all of the medications and the amount of milligrams. Maybe John would, but I'm not going to
I think what
remember.
you're saying,
Yeah, well, you got a
I
good
took a picture of
memory.
it too.
I think it's the
Yeah.
glasses. I just
Yeah.
think that you look super smart with those glasses on. So something like that. But those little
My eyes
things,
got old. I don't know what happened. I don't know
I
what
don't
happened to my
know.
eyes.
I don't know. We'll just say that you're trying to look dapper, you know.
Right. Right.
But yeah, so Honey or Lala, oh no, is this Honey? No, this one is Lala. Took care of my mom for a while before she died because of end of stage kidney failure. Lala, I'm really sorry to hear that, but what an amazing gift that you were able to share by being there with your mom. And thank you for sharing that. And then Christina wrote that, Lala, you are an angel. Yes, she is. Yes, she is.
Yeah.
And I believe
Yeah.
that a lot of caregivers are angels and too often are very humble and they don't talk about it. They feel either embarrassed or, that they shouldn't get any praise for doing what they're doing. So, with that being
Yes.
said, a great big kudos to all the caregivers out there. You literally are making this world a little bit more beautiful. And yeah, so kudos to all of you.
Well, on this point, when I was reflecting back on what we were going to do here today, I thought about, because we would bring my dad until wherever we went, whether it was to the restaurant, where the pub, to the sporting events, wherever. And it was interesting because at sometimes you felt like it was an imposition, and he wasn't very independent. You had to do everything for him, and the warmth that people would extend, and the questions, and the embracing they would have. There's value in that, and I think now, having lived through it, I think I'm extra sensitive to the need to make sure that when I see that, that you recognize that. And one quick story: my brother had taken my dad to Luigi's, and they did lunch, and he told me about this, and he was a bit emotional about it, but it was a very cool story. And it was, he went to leave and asked for his tab, and the waitress at Luigi says, "That's been taken care of, sir." And
Oh, wow.
my brother said, what what was the deal? He said that lady across the restaurant there had paid it, and she came over and she said that she had watched the whole time that my brother was doting after my dad, feeding him his Luigi's pizza,
Oh my gosh.
wiping his face, giving him his drinks, because that's what she had to do with him. He was at
Yeah.
that level of dependence, but
Yeah.
it's just what we did, second nature. And I think that those types of events kind of reset your dial. They give you purpose. They make what you're doing worth it. And I know it meant a lot to my brother, it meant a lot to me. And then so for those that are listening, and I kind of try to say this out loud to hold myself accountable for doing it, is I want to do that same thing. And I think that you just can't underestimate the benefit and what that means to people. And it was just a small gesture, but what a super nice gesture it was.
It really is. And I think sometimes people don't realize how that little gestures like that can sometimes be a lifeline that can help people get through one more day and one more moment. And often caregivers, and I've said this over and over, they're often very silent about it. So doing that is just such an amazing blessing. And they probably would say, "Oh, no, 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 I don't need that. I don't need that." But,
Yep,
it's important
exactly.
to, yeah, it's important to be able to say, "Hey, I need a little bit of help." And Heidi says currently she's taking care of her husband with ALS, 9 years. Wow. Heidi, that's a long time.
Mm,
Yeah, I hope that you're
wow.
taking time to take care of yourself too. And hopefully, this little chat here today will give you a little bit of validation that yes, it's okay for you to take a little bit of a break and to take a minute to do a little bit of healing. And actually, like as a quick side note for people that don't have other loved ones that can step in, some food for thought would even be maybe hiring some help. But instead of doing it just on your own, consider going through an agency that does a background check on people because you do want to be extra caution. Use extra caution because you can be a target.
For sure.
So, yeah. Well, John, I am super grateful that you squeezed me in today. You're the best and always seem calm and cool, even when you're in the midst of your storm. But it's a reminder that we just gotta, be calm and cool, but keep sharing our story. And Heidi wrote, yes, thank you both. Yeah, well, thank you, Heidi. We appreciate you coming on here today. And for those of
For
you
sure.
that didn't see this before, if you get a chance, go sign up for your free copy of Kudos Magazine. This next one is going to be focused on caregiving for the caregiver. You can go to kudosflint.com. And also, really quick, we have a free caregiving group on Facebook. So make sure that you go check those out and do your part to stay positive and keep the momentum going in a good way and keep caring about other
Yeah.
people, including yourself. So, well, John, thank you so much. I appreciate you and all the good things that you guys are
You're
doing over there at Hurley to keep our communities healthy. And I wish you a really beautiful week. You take care of yourself. All
Thank you,
right.
lady.
We'll see you
Good talking
later.
to you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.